Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Jace Graham. He's going to talk to us all about oil and gas investing. And he's got extensive experience coming. He's based out of Dallas, Texas. And I'm really happy to have him on the show. So, Jace, welcome.
Chris, thank you. Glad to be on the show with you.
Yeah, I know so talk about Rising Phoenix Capital. You talk about real estate royalties, talk about your background and how you can best serve the audience.
Perfect. No problem. I'm the CEO and founder of Rising Phoenix. We're out of Dallas, Texas. Rising Phoenix is comprised of a few different operating companies. We've got a real estate investment company. We buy a lot of single family residents all over the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and fix those up and sell them. And also we do private lending and hard money lending for the real estate vertical. We also have an oil and gas acquisition vertical where we're acquiring oil and gas minerals throughout the country. And we also have a Rising Phoenix Capital vertical where we speak with investors, high net worth investors, about investing in one of the two other verticals I just mentioned that we source direct opportunities. Quick background on me. Like I said, I'm from Dallas, Texas. I was born and raised. I'm a fourth generation oil and gas guy. So I grew up in and around the business. My father was a successful independent operator. So he would go out and lease acreage out in the Permian Basin, raise capital, and go drill oil wells. And so I was fortunate enough to work alongside him for about 15 years before he passed in 2019, but started Rising Phoenix back in 2016 with kind of the focus on acquiring oil and gas minerals throughout the country. I had done a lot of that with my father. We also did a lot of direct drilling opportunities, but I found a nice little sweet spot in oil and gas minerals. And that kind of dovetailed into kind of what we do on the real estate side. Both verticals are heavy ground game. We've got sales teams in place that are picking up the phone and talking to a lot of people, whether they own single family residences in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or they own minerals throughout the country. We're a smaller boutique-ish type firm that's really focused on how we acquire those two types of asset classes. And we're pretty good at it. And so we've built out these verticals. We've got a great team at Rising Phoenix comprised of about 15 individuals, split about 50-50 between our real estate and our mineral and royalty teams. And so now we're stepping out. We've got about 35 million in mineral assets under management. So we're starting to admit primarily it was friends and family and people we know and like doing business with, and starting to realize that there's really not this asset class out there for a investor to look at and invest in, talking about the oil and gas energy investing that we do. And so found a need for that. And so we rolled out Rising Phoenix Capital within the last 18 months to focus primarily on educating people about this type of asset class, which is oil and gas investing, whether that's minerals or direct drilling opportunities. We'll talk more about those here later. But yeah, just excited to spread the word, talk about what we do. Like I said, not a lot of people know about the asset class or even invest in it. So happy to pop the hood and pull back the curtain, if you will, and explore more about what that looks like.
Yeah, it's really, no, I grew up in Texas too. It's like the oil country. So one thing is talking about, because a lot of the audience we talked about is they're doctors, they're executives, lawyers, very traditional, professional, working class. And the one thing that they always do is they invest in real estate and kind of they're always looking at the next thing. So what is oil and gas? Like, how do you invest in it? What are the advantages? And I heard there's a lot of tax advantages, but talk about how you get into this asset class.
Yeah, no, you're right. Most high net worth individuals, doctors, attorneys, investors like that, real estate is everywhere. Oil and gas minerals, it's part of the real estate. It's part of the bundles of sticks that go along with real estate. So it is in its essence a real estate transaction. They say that when the first president patented the first tracts of lands out to the landowners, they owned from the center of the earth to the zenith in the sky, all right, title and interest, air rights, water rights, right to ingress, egress, and the mineral rights. And we just so happen to focus on that mineral right interest. And we've created investment vehicles that kind of, also do that. And so ways that you can look at investing in oil and gas. Obviously, you can invest in operators that are publicly traded on the stock market. That's not what we're going to talk about. We're talking about direct investing into the space where there's tangible assets that we're going after. And it's an alternative asset, similar just like real estate, but we'll talk a little bit about 3 ways that you can directly invest into this space. The first would be we've got mineral funds, or you can invest into a mineral fund. And so you would come in as a limited partner, put up whatever 50, 100,000, whatever it may be, 250,000, and then you pull your money in with other investors that are looking for a return. And we do quite a bit of that. And we go out, and once we've raised a fund, and we're currently wrapping up a capital raise on our most recent fund, we'll go out and we'll start identifying and finding oil and gas minerals throughout the country from owners that want a lump sum payment versus that monthly royalty income stream that they get from the producing wells on their mineral interest. The second way that you can also invest, it's similar, but you can also do 1031 exchanges. So I know you mentioned that a lot of people invest in real estate. And so you can actually sell real estate, whether that's a multifamily apartment complex or single family residence, and you can 1031 defer the taxes into minerals. It's a like kind exchange. So that's another thing that we work with investors on. And I'd say the third thing is direct drilling deals. And we can pop the hood on each one of those and explore a little bit more. But there's massive tax advantages of investing into direct drilling deals. You have to be more cautious. It's a higher return profile, higher risk as well, because there is dry hole risk. But in those types of investments, you can take upwards of 60 to 75% tax write-off in the first year alone from the intangible drilling costs, which is what we call IDCs. Big income earners, big ordinary income earners that make a lot of money, this is a great way to write off taxes and have an opportunity for a nice potential return, assuming the wells do hit.
Yeah, really, it just reminds me of kind of basically what you're talking about, a direct investment into a fund that looks at these different in real estate, it's syndications or so. Next question I have for you is with oil and gas. I was looking at these statistics, and given with electric now and with the climate and given current projected trends in the industry, how do you see this asset class evolving? And talk about, because I know, do you invest directly in the States, or do you look at it because there's oil in different parts of the world?
Yeah, Chris, good questions. So yeah, the United States is unique. It's the only country that allows the citizen to actually own the minerals of underneath their subject acreage. So in any of the other countries out there, the governments own the mineral interest. The United States is a unique opportunity where we can actually reach out and talk directly to mineral owners themselves to acquire those assets. As far as where I look at it, coal was the energy source of the past. Oil is the energy source today, and I see natural gas being a big energy source of the future. We are sitting on more natural gas reserves than any country in the world, the Saudi Arabia, if you will, of natural gas. And it's clean. You're seeing states and governments putting billions of dollars into the infrastructure of converting those coal-fired electricity plants over to natural gas. We're starting to export quite a bit more. We produce roughly 96 billion cubic feet a day. We export 25% of that overseas through LNG, liquefied natural gas, primarily along the Gulf Coast. So massive demand. Just looking at current state today, where energy comes from, you're looking at about 33% of our energy is supplied by natural gas. 36 is by oil. Coal comes in at 10%. Renewables are at 13%, but that's all renewables. That's wind and solar. And without the subsidies, it's really hard for solar and wind to really stand on its own, especially when natural gas is so cheap. We're hovering around 5-year lows. It's $2 an MCF. It's been as high as $8 within the last 2 years. So it's really hard for those other alternative energy sources. And I'm all for all of them. I think you need it all. I mean, the United States has got a very big thirst for energy. It's going to come from a lot of different places. Just the infrastructure that we have here in the United States for oil and natural gas, it's huge. It's massive. And I know people look at also, hey, what about all these electric vehicles that are coming out? That's great. We're all for that as well. You've got to think about where does the energy come from to charge the batteries, right? So you have to back it all the way up. And of course, natural gas is the fuel source in these electric plants that convert that to electricity and charge those batteries. So it's going to be here for a while, at least for past my tenure on this planet and probably my kids. But yeah, we think there's quite a bit of running room here and it's not going anywhere. And plus, just think about all the other things that petroleum is used for. It's not just gasoline. It's plastics, it's fertilizer, it's asphalt, it's all kinds of stuff in the medical field. So there's just a lot of use for fossil fuels, if you will. I know sometimes that's a bad word, but it is what it is, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, really interesting. It's because I grew up in Houston. They call it the energy capital of the world, but we can't seem to keep our lights on. But and then that was really cool. I heard about fracking. That's what they did when their petroleum reserves were going down. So they did fracking and natural gas. And now I know there's a lot of geopolitical risk and a lot of countries are divesting off the petrodollar and shunning the state just because of all these sanctions. Volatile market like oil and gas, what strategies do you use to mitigate and manage investment risks?
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's great because you're right. Oil and or natural gas can fluctuate in price quite a bit on an annual basis. There's no Zillow, there's no MLS for this stuff to be able to underwrite it and look at it. That's why it's pretty hard to do. But we've got an in-house petroleum engineer who is licensed, that went to school to study how to underwrite these types of assets. So when we see commodity prices playing on the upper end, then we're really haircutting the reserve profile of that underlying asset or wells that we're looking at buying, looking at that future production. When prices are low, we can get a little bit more aggressive. And so we're trying to find that happy medium where we can play regardless of where commodity prices are. So right now, natural gas is at $2 an MCF. It's got a lot of room to go up, not a lot of room to go down. And so we can get a little bit more aggressive with those assets and how we buy them. Where oil is hovering around 70, $75 a barrel. It's gone as high as 120. It went as high as 100 back in 2022. So we like oil at $70 a barrel. It's a good place where buyers and sellers can transact and not have issues. But when prices go too high, the seller's sentiment is they think it's worth a lot more than we're willing to pay. We're only using a $70 price strip. They're getting check stubs based off 100. So we try to mitigate that risk. And when you invest in one of the mineral funds, you're diversified across various assets, various basins, various, commodity types. So it's not all oil or all natural gas. So you've got this blend of many different assets across all the major basins, from the Permian Basin to the Marcellus Shale up in the Northeast to the Haynesville Shale in Louisiana, Barnett Shale right outside of Dallas, heavy natural gas, Bakken Shale up in the Dakotas that you've heard about. So we play in all those basins. We own assets in every single one of them. And so you're looking at a blended approach, and our funds have done pretty well. Through COVID and everything, we've averaged about 17% cash on cash return back to our investors on an annual basis.
Fascinating. And you talked about the capital appreciation. You talked about the royalties, the tax advantages, the risk mitigation. How can people find you and find out more about what you do if they're interested in learning more? I'm sure you offer investor relation webinars and that sort of thing, conference calls. How can they find out more about you and what you do?
Absolutely. We do both we do the minerals. Like I said, we do mineral funds. So if someone's just looking to invest and get in, and we do a $50,000 minimum accredited investors, that we've got a mineral fund, and we've got one right now called maroonbellsfund.com. You can go check it out. So there's some information about it, some videos on how we underwrite, how we acquire. So that's one spot. We also do 1031 exchanges. So those are direct. You can't 1031 into a fund. So we really educate our clients on what that specific asset looks like that they can 1031 into. And then around this time each year, we roll out a direct drilling fund where it's more of a tax type advantage, but return profiles are in that 3 to 5 to 1 MOIC, or multiple on invested capital. As far as reaching out, finding us or me, you can reach out, talk to somebody on our investor relations team, invest at rising-phoenix.com. That's rising dash with the hyphen phoenix.com. And we've got a phone number, 214-949-1856 is our direct investor line. And we just like talking about this asset class. Like I said, it's very unique. If you Google invest in oil and gas minerals, you're not going to find a lot of stuff out there. So it is a niche kind of space. And we try to put a good offering out there. Like I said, I'm fourth generation and we want to put something out there that we're proud of, that doesn't have a lot of fees and overhead and all that, but a good guy deal. And I think we've done that with just our structure and our promote on the deal. We put it on the back. So investors we don't make our bulk of our money until the investment goes full cycle and gets our investors all their money back. And I think that speaks to what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you. And I love you. Sometimes we get guests questionable, but I really love your forthrightness and your willingness to discuss this interesting asset class. And for all the audience, be sure to give Jace's resources. You can follow, check out his webinars and his content, reach out to investor relationships. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Right. Hey, thanks, Chris.